New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
Greetings, everyone.
And welcome to New Thought today for the 14th of April. Here we are, the middle of April already. And it's going to snow in Denver this weekend. So welcome to springtime in the Rockies. Our special guest today, all the way from Long Island, New York, Reverend Rodney Gittens. Reverend Rodney, welcome aboard.
Greeting. Thank you so much, Reverend Robert and well, Doctor Reverend and Rev E.
So good to be with you. So, as is our custom here around on this show, we like to kick it over to our guests to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit more about yourself, what we need to know to get this conversation started. So, Reverend Rodney, take us away.
Well, thank you for the honor of being with you on this particular show, and I am Reverend Rod from actually the lower part of Long Island. We call it Brooklyn. It's all one landmass, but there is some distinctions there. So I am from Brooklyn, New York. Brooklyn, born and bred is how we call it, and raised in Brooklyn, and have so blessed to be able to travel around many places and get a feel for the world. I am as far as I know, I'm the only minister in religious science born and bred in Brooklyn and currently in Brooklyn, residing in Brooklyn. So I'm so grateful that I can represent New Thought religious science as such. And I could be wrong. However, no one else has told me different. So, I came up through religious science, and actually I was invited to Unity churches, and somehow the connection with religious science, what we call now Centers for Spiritual Living, really was a strong connection for me. I have a center that was co-founded by a number of us through using the life visioning process. It's now called One Love Center for Spiritual Living. I am the founding minister, senior minister, and we're right now online ministry, basically as a consequence of the pandemic. We have not yet got back into meeting in person. However, we do provide weekly Sunday celebration. It's more of a conversation, as you know. And thank you so much for joining us. And basically, that's what we do. We like to talk new thought, religious science, and other avenues of new thought, and just to bring the message to the world. And that is a message of peace and love and joy and harmony and goodwill, and most certainly that each one has the ability to change their lives in a way that provides them with more of the abundant life in all of the things that we would consider good. Health, wealth, well-being, peace of mind, peace in the soul, for ourselves, that we get to mirror them, those qualities for others.
Yes. And as you were mentioning, predominantly now online. And I had the pleasure to be with you in your community a couple of weeks ago, and I love it because it wasn't like we were sitting spying in on somebody's church service. With more of a discussion and more of an interview style and more of an opportunity, but it also incorporated a number of the, let's say, more traditional aspects of bringing some music in, bringing some readings and some prayers in, and those types of things. So a big thank you. It just so happened that we had you scheduled on this program, and then you got me scheduled on that program, and so we've been kind of hanging out together a little bit lately.
Well, that's a usual occurrence with the both of you, because whenever I see either of you or both of you, I know I'm in the right place. So.
And folks, this is not Reverend Rodney's first appearance on this program. We go way back. It was 2023 at the Parliament of the World Religions.
Yes.
Where I made you take like a 3-mile walk from the Parliament back to the hotel room to record one of these episodes. See, you weren't with us on that one, but it was a long. I remember that. It was a long. We had all kinds of material prepared, folks, walking back from the conference to the hotel for that interview. So you can go back and check that out. That would have been in 2023. That's available in our archives as well. So Rodney, tell us a little bit more. What have you been up to? What's happening at One Love?
Well, again, we're continuing to do our Sunday message, incorporating a combination of some of the monthly, weekly, yearly theme in our discussions, which is yearly. It's open at the top, and which is could be considered a let me see how you put it, a cliche. However, we really are taking it to heart, and be open at the top to me means, well, there really is no ceiling. Whatever is perceived to be a top is an illusion, and any of these perceived illusions we are eradicating, and of course it all starts in the mind first. uh, and so it's all about consciousness. Actually, how I like to greet everybody is by saying grand rising consciousness. So in that way, it sets us off with believing, first of all, that our consciousness gets to rise whatever level that we find ourselves. There's more, and that's using the spiritual principles, spiritual awareness. It's like building our faith, all of the spiritual tools and gifts that are at hand, at foot, and at mind, in our minds. But the most important thing is being able to share the awareness of these spiritual tools, these spiritual principles, these spiritual laws that are available for our good, our greater good. And I do mean individually. However, what good is it if we don't get to share it, we don't get to use it and help another to lift up another in raising their conscious awareness of truth? So that's what we do at One Love Center. I kind of downloaded something called What If, uh, and I don't view it as a question, uh, uh, because Ernest Holmes, founder of religious science, tells us we must know that we know. And so very often we are operating from a place of not knowing, but what is it that we do know? And that is that everything that he also says all is well quite a lot. And it's very comforting to know that all is well. And if that's the case, we being creative beings using the creative mind of the creator, we share in that, share in the one mind, which I love that as well. Not in the beginning. I thought, oh my God, that's an awesome responsibility for my own life. Uh, well, I mean, obviously, there was a point in time when I wasn't living as responsibly for myself as I could, you know. And when I heard change your thinking, change your life, that made it a little bit more palpable, uh, digestible, uh, to do make those changes using the creative powers of the one mind and the law
Yeah.
of the creative law that yeah I get to have be responsible, uh, and it starts with my faith, having faith. Again, I was just reading recently. Ernest Holmes says about faith is that we have to be uh, we have to have faith is founded on faith, acceptance, and trust, and those are so uh, powerful, uh, I guess, rocks, that we can build on, bricks that we can build on. And so, I think it's all about this is where we come from, one love, and centers for truth all over. Religious sciences and everyone, who I think all religions have a spiritual base, spiritually grounded. And, for me, I found that religious science was devoid of the dogma that I had been running from in other religions.
Hmm.
And so at One Love, as I mentioned, in other centers for spiritual living and other churches, and all of our different manifestations, study groups, and the like, that it's about teaching uh, the truth teaching. It's about spiritual education, which to me implies practice.
And the thing that you said that resonates really well in my mind, couple of things. And the first one is a knowing, right? No, there's that song and there's that verse in the peace song that said we can all know everything without ever knowing how. It's in
Mm,
every one of us here and now, right? So when you look at the concepts that are really in all religions about the oneness and that we came from this one thing, intelligent, however you want to describe it, there's no way for me not to be connected, as we've now learned by quantum physics and quantum entanglement. Once something is entangled and correlated, it is always in correlated, no matter where it is. And so I think that's something that we have to lean more into, because as a result of that, that whole open at the top piece works, because we start from that idea of I hope this stuff works. Or first we say I don't believe this stuff works. That's the first place. And then it's like, well, I hope it works. And then I think it works. And then I have faith it works. And then after you've tried it and practiced, you begin to know it works. But that knowing just opens up the level at the top to say, okay, I know at this level, but there's, as you said, another ceiling above. So I got to go through that whole process of hoping and thinking and faith. And it's an evolutionary cycle. And that's what I love about this whole idea of religious science. The laws that Newton and Galileo, discovered, informed us of, they are continuing to expand. And that's how we look at this teaching, I think. And I think we should look at it that way, that no matter what the circumstance is, we have the ability to move beyond.
yeah. Thank you. Absolutely.
Great aspect of it. So if we're going to talk about quantum physics, to me, one of the things I've always taken out of quantum physics is not necessarily predestination, but once we've got correlated, we really can't deny what we've come to know. We can't run away from it. We can't stick our heads in the sand about it. And so kind of we know what we know and we know that we know it sort of thing. And that leads me to kind of one of my questions that I always like to ask people is, for you, Reverend Rodney, like, when did you share with us a little bit? How did you find this New Thought thing, this Centers for Spiritual Living? And I heard you say earlier you had been invited to a couple of Unity churches, but what was going on in your life when you came to really know this?
Well, let me see. I'm looking for the short answer. However, I'll go mid-range. Well, I was already in the midst of making profound change in my life. I no longer was using anything on the outside to make myself feel better on the inside, meaning, releasing not only the outer, the substances and the beliefs and the actions that were degrading my life. Uh, I had to, and I used the 12-step process. I went to 12-step meetings and rooms, and was introduced to spiritual principles that way. However, there was something missing for me, and I'm grateful to the rooms of the 12-step programs that helped me, that put me on the path to know deeper. And as I mentioned to people, I found myself on a quest to use these spiritual principles like I used uh, uh, alcohol and drugs and everything else. And I say, I, I want to chase these spiritual principles like I chased that last one,
Okay.
like I chased, and I wanted straight and no chaser, you know. I wanted to know what is love, without having to go through the explanation of, love. Through the 12 steps, which is valid and viable and everything. But what's the raw meaning of it? And I eventually I went to a convention in Ohio, and before the convention, I was visiting a best friend, and he and I and his wife and a friend that they got for me, blind date. She ended up giving me at the end of that date the Science of Mind magazine and 3 cassette tapes. So, it was a while ago. uh, and one of those tapes was Reverend Michael Beckwith and Ricky Byers doing live visioning process in Dayton, Ohio. And that just blew my mind. The talk, the music, the concept of visioning, everything felt like in so much alignment for me. And it taped
Mhm.
also Margaret Stores and Jack. I don't remember his last name right now, but they were just incredible. And then, so I had the Science of Mind magazine, and I just read it over and over and over again, and never once thought that there would, you know, be other issues. So I never looked for 'em. However, what made the difference for me was uh, in a period of like 6 months, I kept getting hit rear-ended, hit from behind by drivers. The first time, oh, I got bumped. The second time, it was a little harder. I got bumped, and the third time, it was a crash, and I got my neck in a collar, and something told me pick up the magazine, look for something that's going to help me, and I picked it up upside down. And I turned it right side up. You know how you just open up the books and everything and see what you see, and it said Directory of Churches. I'm like, wow, I never saw that. I had that book for like a year. It's like I never saw that before. And so I found a center in Manhattan, and I went, and I never stopped going to
Mm.
religious science. So I got what I needed there. I never wore that collar again. I got my healing, and which was big. I mean, a physical healing, contradicting, what the doctors were
Mm.
saying and
Mm.
possible operation and all of that. So that was my really mid-range introduction to religious science. There's more, but I was dedicated to showing up for myself more than ever, especially because now I had that spiritual toolbox that I could apply without having to necessarily do it through uh, these other organizations. Even though, yeah, they work quite well. So anyway, that's and I was open. I getting hit from behind was a serious message.
Especially if it happens a few times. I was speaking the other day that when these type of synchronicities happen repeatedly, if you are on the path or not on the path, if you're just aware, you begin to ask, why do I keep seeing or experiencing or doing the same things, even when consciously I'm trying to avoid them or mitigate them or whatever? Um, and it's like the idea that, when the time has come for a thing to happen, when it's time for the seed to burst,
Mhm.
right? It's been under enough pressure, it's got enough sun and enough water for it to sprout. Nothing's going to stop it from sprouting.
That's
And
right.
I Robert and I talk about this all. My favorite science of mind text meant Bible, Quran, Bhagavad Gita is the Tao Te Ching is nature itself.
Yes.
And, and because one, I think to get those messages from nature in line with the car wreck, you have to pay attention. You have to be aware. You got to be present or you'll miss it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's key for us right, especially now, is that we have to be aware, we have to pay attention, and we have to begin to move in the directions, as they say, when you're up against a trouble, running from it will not save you. You got to see it through.
That's right.
Yeah. Very.
And I also want to add, and thank you for that. It's usually what I realize now is that the message was always being broadcast. I just wasn't listening.
Mm.
It really, as you mentioned, it needed to get my attention. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
God still speaks in a still small voice. I'm like, God doesn't yell. It's like, I love you. Hey, beloved. Pay attention. And what do we call it? That spiritual 2x4.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that's gonna, what I call a shaking in.
Yeah.
It's like, wake up. You, you, you know, and if not, then you end up with the spiritual Mack truck,
Yeah.
bonk bonk, and you gotta move.
Yeah. Yeah.
It starts with the little love tab.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't listen, then it becomes a little kind of shove in the shoulder. And if you still don't listen, then it becomes a major kick in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And I reflect upon that because over the last couple seasons here of my life, and I've talked about this publicly, but the time came for me to let go of marijuana completely.
mhm,
And I had heard the voice. I had heard the nudges. I had heard that little bit of that, this would be a good idea. Yeah, the time is coming. And yeah, 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 yeah. But the human ego didn't want to hear that. The humanness was like, no, 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 no. I got this under control. It's all good. And didn't want to surrender into a greater experience of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a few tries, and not letting go took a few tries. It took a few tries of that nudge in different
Mm-hmm.
ways, in different
Mm-hmm.
people, in different experiences, before I was really ready to say, okay, yeah, you're right, and let me let go of what I think should be happening here and fully surrender into what the divine wants to have happen in here.
Right. Right. Yeah.
and it's interesting, and of course, it is about surrender to, as we were talking about the quantum, the consciousness of whatever is possible, everything is possible. There was a crazy movie, was that Everything Everywhere or something,
Yeah.
and it's really wild, but it embraces the different dimensions, of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's one life. However, there's all of these intricate, distinct possibilities that emanate still from the one. And I
Mm-hmm.
really it took me about maybe 3 or 4 times to get through that movie. But
Mm-hmm.
and not to be so distracted by all of um the craziness of it, but the whole idea was to, I was going to say, unbend my mind, you
Mm-hmm.
know to realize that yeah, um everything is possible. in the quantum realm, it's like, well, where are we putting our attention? And as you're talking about that, that collapses into that one creative act
Mm-hmm.
from putting our attention. And it
Mm-hmm.
helps if we have an intention, that
Mm-hmm.
starts to also funnel it into being, like you're saying, Reverend Robert. It's like once we surrender with that intention, then everything else kind of opens up and becomes wildly possible. And then we bring it home to where it has that meaning. I know that's what it was for me. Um, having that trust that all is well, that I'll be okay. When I put down that familiar, move into the unknowingness from a place of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. The faith of a mustard seed. Yeah, that's not a lot. It's really, mustard seeds are really like a pinhead, but that's all the faith we need,
Mm-hmm.
and with that faith, then what opens up is those unlimited possibilities. And with that faith, I'm like, okay, well, now I can take a step. And there's something else that has come to me that I talk about is the gap, the GAP, the gap. Like if you've been to London, like it says mind the gap.
Right.
And in the subways. Uh, and that gap is between the train station platform and when the train comes in. There's a gap, and you have to be mindful of it. Otherwise, you slip through. And in life, it's like there's a gap between each step that we get to take. Each step I take, there's that moment where there's this unknowing, like I don't know what's going to happen between each step. However, I do know that I'll be all right. That as a child of God, that I am empowered, I am guided, guarded, protected with every step.
Yeah.
However, that moment in between steps can sometimes seem forever. And I don't mean just physically the steps. I'm talking about, hey, I got an idea. I want to promote this. I want to build this. I want to do this. And between that idea, that inception, that intention, and the actual manifestation,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there's a well, there's always a gap. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
But some it's like baking a cake. You got all the ingredients, you stick it in the oven, and then what do we do with our faith? Are we
Mhm.
opening up the oven to check? You know, well, there's a knowing in that unknowingness. Okay, the temperature's right, the ingredients are right, it's in the pan, and there's that gap.
Yeah.
So that's where that trust comes in. Go ahead. Yeah.
And I'm just gonna say, that idea of a recipe, I'm gonna have to use that. Because it just brought a great point in mind, right? I can bake a cake, and there are various cakes, short cakes, pound cakes, bundt cakes, German chocolate cake. They're all kind of cakes, and they have similar ingredients. However, the way I mix the ingredients for one cake is different from that of another cake. Same ingredients, but the mixture and the timing of kneading and all of the things. And when if we could begin to look at this teaching and this thing called life in that manner, yes, we're all creating life and exploring life, but some of us are bundt cakes, some of us are lemon pound cakes, and takes a little different. The oven has to be at a different temperature, which means the conditions that I face might be slightly different or will be slightly different from yours for me to, as you were saying earlier, get that rear end to wake me up and say, "Ooh, wait a minute, I need to change something." And that's another great way of there's so many different ways of explaining that each and every one of our lives is a recipe. God is making a cake. God is making a plate of food, whatever that is, and each intricate thing on there requires a different piece of attention, seasoning, temperature, um, manner of cooling. And so, if we could take that and look at our lives in that way, as you said, with the visioning process of what am I? Who am I? Why am I here? I think that I'm gonna have to work with that. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, by all means, yeah. It's like one of the things, I was at the CSL conference this past weekend, and one of the workshops I attended was about visioning. Global visioning, visioning for the planet, visioning for this country, visioning for the planet, and what most of us, how visioning life visioning process is that people are attuned and connected to one another. Had so many different groups, and what usually came out, of course, was peace, love and social action, social justice, all of the things. And the theme was pretty much life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The
Mhm.
American values that is supposed to be for all, but I don't want to get too deep into that. However, uh, what came out of it was that um, we all have to do our part
Mhm.
individually,
Mhm.
um, to not only see in our minds and feel in our heart is what is possible, but to take it to the next level.
Mhm.
Again, being open at the top means, well, uh, you know how it is when somebody has a great idea and they think somebody else should do it. We're like, well, no, that came through you. That's your job. That's partly why you're here on the planet. you know
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and so each of us has a distinct purpose for being here on the planet.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we all have this basic same ingredients. We might look different on the outside, but we're all made from the same God stuff, on the inside. It just, looks a little different on the outside. It's a very
Mhm.
small DNA difference, So, for me, and I don't know what you guys think about it, but, that's, um, aside from the politics of it, there is the use of the spiritual law, which, like, yes, our founding fathers for this country, and I'm sure it's true for every country. Every country wants their people, you know, to be free, to have, happy, joyous, you know, and, and and to contribute to the lives of each other. I think that's the basic,
Mhm.
premise for everyone. You
Mhm.
know, how things kind of end up getting distorted, whether it's political or religious, might get in the way of that divine ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Well, you guys got me all wired up because we're talking about visioning. And as many of you know, I'm a big proponent of the practice, and I have a new visioning program coming up
Oh,
in the very near future here in partnership with the affiliated New Thought Network. It's the New Thought Visioning Circle. It's going to happen monthly on the third Thursday of the month, 1 p.m. Mountain Time. First one's coming up here April 23rd. And we've got the link running across the bottom of the screen there. You're welcome to go on over to antn.org, sign up, free, no cost. Everyone is welcome. No experience necessary. Come join us and learn more about visioning. But also, just as you're kind of talking about, Rodney, be a part of a circle of people that is working towards revealing the greater vision, in this case for the New Thought movement, or for the planet, or for even for our political process. But we don't have time to go there today. We need to take a break and let some of our sponsors say hello. So and let Reverend Rodney have a little sip of water. We're going to take a quick short break, folks, and then be right back with more with Reverend Rodney Gittens and New Thought Today right after these messages. Stay tuned. help us say thank you to all of our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Center for Spiritual Living United Life, Sunshine Cathedral, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Universal Joy Center, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. On behalf of New Thought Media Network, thank you, and please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And we're back with more of New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. On behalf of my co-host, Reverend Elzia Sekou, and myself, we're grateful to welcome Reverend Rodney Gittens as our special guest today. And if you're just joining us, we were talking about visioning before the break, and in that process of visioning, not just for ourselves, but for something bigger. And that really plays into what we always like to ask our guests here on this program. And that is to help us kind of catch a glimpse of what you see, Reverend Rodney, as the big vision for humanity, the New Thought movement, for Science of Mind, for however you want to phrase it. But what do you kind of catch as the big vision of where we're going in the world?
Well, it's probably an easy question. In a sense, I do see the macro um, mirroring the micro, meaning it's starting on individual basis, like as we do our work, as I do my personal work for my personal freedom, peace, understanding, uh, that there is a shared vision that, as you mentioned, that starts individually. It starts on that group level in our smaller communities, and it grows. It widens and starts to encompass more and more, as maybe it's one by one. That people start getting it, that we're all one. That there's no reason for us to create conflicts with one another. That we don't need to fear one another. Um, my practice for me begins, especially when I'm driving. Uh, it's like somebody cuts me off and they're honking their horn. I'm I'm remembering peace. God bless you. Things of that nature. Smiling when it doesn't seem appropriate, like I'm supposed to growl and scowl. Because somebody's doing that at me, and so I see that as the micro, and how it gets to infect and infest our consciousness, leading us all. Like for me, it's practice. So the more I do it, the more susceptible I am to keep doing it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it gives permission to others to, like, okay, maybe it wasn't that serious. Okay, and I see that bit by bit. And I don't know, and they say in God there is no time, so we say in God's time. But I'd love to see it in this body lifetime that I have, that, yeah, on a global level, that we get it. That we get that we're all in this together. um, it's like you can't blast off a nuclear bomb and expect it not to affect everyone on the planet. It just is. Uh, so I think that, at least in that respect, the fear of harming oneself with the intention of harming another, might just be, strong enough until folks start getting like, well, maybe we don't need to harm one another. Uh, and I think the more that the message of love and oneness continues, that bit by bit, it's going to become part of the general conversation, or consciousness. That rising consciousness that I talk about. That's I see that as gaining strength and power. Or gaining use of the power, because it
Right.
already is the power.
Exactly. And you remind me of something. We were at the conference together, and there was a emphasis on practice, right? And move, as we often say, moving from the head to the heart, actually doing some of, or putting some of these ideas and principles into practice. And as you were saying that, I was just thinking to myself, what greater time than now than to practice? I mean, there's so much going on in all phases of life. You pick one, there's something going on. Uh, but it's a perfect uh, playing field, if you will, or gymnasium or library. Pick the motif that fits for us to practice these principles. And then I know for me, and I think it's probably true for most people, that once you begin to, I got the idea, but the moment I practice it, the idea shifts a little bit more. It becomes a little more concrete. I can relate it to different things. And as we look to what's to do in the future of this movement, I think it's that to understand the principles, to begin the practice, and then be able to explain or exemplify these practices in a practical way so that people can do it. I mean,
Yeah.
You can't. I can. Robert and I talk about this all the time. I can give you all the pictures and videos on swimming, but until you jump in the water, you're never going to learn to swim.
Hmm. That's right.
I love you're hitting on a word here that I think had gotten lost in the New Thought movement, and that's practical.
Mm-hmm.
I think for a while it got lost, and there's a resurgence now. And I talk about it a bunch when we talk about prayer, that prayer needs to be practical. It's not just the airy fairy, bless me, oh, this is great and wonderful, and some pie in the sky kind of activity.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to have the practicalness of it, that this is what's necessary in my life. And I've stopped using the term spiritual mind treatment just because it kind of makes people go, what? And then it takes longer to explain it, and more often it's like, so you mean it's like this? No. Oh, so it's not like that, it's like this? No. It's a practical, affirmative prayer.
Yeah.
And the demonstration is the proof that I'm doing it right.
Right.
And if I'm not getting a demonstration, then I got to change what I'm putting into my prayer work.
Yeah.
Kind
I
of
love
like
that. Yeah.
kind of like that cake, right? If I got all the ingredients, but I don't put no eggs in there, or I don't put no baking powder in there, I got
That ain't practical, no.
Right.
I got to go back to the drawing board. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we can get across as a movement in general, and as religious science specifically, the more we can interject and demonstrate and point to practice, right? Being practical. There was a Reverend Cynthia did the keynote at the conference, and she made reference to, and I forget the priest's name. It's a Catholic priest in somewhere in Europe. and he wasn't seeing the involvement and the activity that he wanted from his parishioners and the community. So he went and learned how to be a DJ, right? And start doing music for the kids. And now he is a nationally sought after DJ, right? Now, I mean, just go figure that, right? When he produces with his collar on. He has his whole priestly official outfit on, and he's DJing and he's rocking. But that's saying I got the understanding of a principle of what it takes to get people involved and to get people's attention and to have a conversation, right? And in my venue right now, I'm going to go learn to be a DJ. So the question becomes for each and every one of us, what is that thing that appears to be out of character, but in alignment with principle that I need to go and demonstrate by practice?
Yes. That reminds me of this.
Life is good and all is well, yes? Life is good and all is well, yes?
Yes. Yes.
So, folks, if you don't catch the humor there, that's just a little clip from Michael Bernard Beckwith's album called Transcendence. And what someone did is a member of his congregation came to him and said, "Hey, Rev, I took some of the CDs. Sorry, he didn't do the tape thing. I took some of the CDs and I cut out some clips and I put it to some dance music and created a whole album." And Michael didn't even have to say anything more than, "Wow, that sounds cool. Yeah, let's do that." And he's got a whole collection now. But I love what you're talking about, because I believe in New Thought, Science of Mind, we have to stop pretending that we've got a corner on the market, that we have a monopoly on spirituality, and that everybody's going to beat a path to our door. That might have been true 20 or 30 years ago, but that's not true. That's not true in today's world. And in today's world, we have to take the wisdom, the knowledge, the inspiration that we know and bring it to the way people want to engage and how they want to consume. And
Right.
I haven't talked about this publicly all that much, but we've launched a whole secondary channel that on YouTube. It's called The One Speaks TV. It's a faceless channel, but it's New Thought principles, and we're predominantly doing 1, 5, or 8 minute videos. No long form stuff. We do that here. If that's what you want, come here and do that. But this is designed to say this is anonymous, a little more anonymous, and if it catches you, cool. And we can do some experimenting with things that maybe the traditionalists around our movement would not appreciate or would look down upon. But we're getting views because I believe a younger generation is hungry for this information. They're just not all that enamored with the kind of cake that we bake sometimes. Not everybody likes chocolate cake. Some of us like lemon cream pie and stuff, right?
Exactly. And I'm a part of a book club on the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, old book, still available, but it came out in the early mid to late 80s. And one of the founding principles of that, in terms of how to be effective in your life, is to look at from what perspective are you operating from? Are you operating from a character base or personality base? Right? And what I just heard you talk about on this new YouTube channel, it's not about the personality, right? Because I may have the best message, but if you see me, you may be turned off by my personality, right?
Not you.
But if I'm giving you the character-based, the principle-based stuff, and not the personality stuff, which, you know, we've all said as we look to the future of this movement, what's happening, we see a lot of people doing motivational speaking and self-help and all those things, which are great, but they've taken our message and turned it into a personality. They've taken these principles and made it a personality, and they think that that's the only way it can happen. But once we begin to be character-based or principle-based as opposed to personality-based, I think that's going to open up a whole nother door.
Yep.
Yeah, I do think that's a great idea. And there's, and as we're all alluding to, there's, I mean, I don't know if there's ever going to be an end to how many cakes and pies that can be made. You know, somebody's going to like one of them. You know, somebody's going to come up with another one. You know, so I think that's all the same, and that's the power of the visioning. You know, getting a glimpse of the infinite mind of the Creator. That and like what I've been focusing on this year, like what if, you know, which is not really a question. Basically, it's based on the acronym, you know, what if. And I just want to quickly introduce that. It stands for wholeness, harmony, absolute trust. Oh, thank you. You know, and the if, you know, is infinite foundation or infinite flow or whatever. So I like the inner foundation because that really lets us know that, yeah, right within me, you know, is this foundation of wholeness, you know, the abundant nature of the universe. All of that is right where I am. And therefore, based on that, what's not possible, everything is possible. So what if is more of a statement rather than a question. But we can ask, you know, what if or what's next, you know, with absolute trust. And as opposed and with the knowing that was mentioned also, you know, that when you know that you know, then it's like,
yeah,
whatever comes, I know it's got to be good. With that foundation. Yeah,
exactly. Folks, it is time for us to take another quick break and let Reverend Rodney here have another sip of water and let us say hello to a couple of people. So we're going to take one more quick break. Be back in just a moment with our final thoughts. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Please help us say thank you to all of our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Center for Spiritual Living United Life, Sunshine Cathedral, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Universal Joy Center, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Home Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. On behalf of New Thought Media Network, thank you, and please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, come be you. Yes. Thank you to all of our organizational sponsors and individual donors and viewers like you. If you've wondered what you stumbled into here today, this is New Thought Today. My co-host, Reverend LZ, and I come together every Tuesday afternoon to talk with some of the most interesting people on the planet, the leaders of the New Thought movement. Today, that's our special guest, Reverend Rodney Gittens. You can learn more about his work over at One Love Center for Spiritual Living There's their website going across the bottom of the screen there, onelovecenter.org. And we've had a great conversation, but we always do like to check in near the end of the hour and just ask Reverend Rodney, is there anything we've forgotten? Anything you were hoping we would talk about today that we didn't get around to?
Well, well, I'm open to share. Well, some of the places where we get to see each other, like the Convention of the Americas, that's happening in Chapala, Mexico.
Yeah.
That's coming up in July, I believe, the 21st to I think the 25th.
Yep.
And you can find them Convention of the Americas. You can go to our Centers for Spiritual Living, csl.org, and you can find that information there. Or I think on Facebook, Convention of the Americas as well. So that's
.org.
coming up. It's a wonderful very spiritual adventure. And there will be so many activities that just really it's international, so you really get to feel more of a sense of a global presence.
Yes.
And so that's great. Also, I want to quickly add, if I may, about the Celebrating Our Soul conference, brought to you by People of African Descent New Thought Group. Something else that came out of visioning, and that's August 13th to the 16th. Actually, early bird pricing ends tomorrow. And this year, the theme is Claiming Our Sacred Power. It's a 4-day awakening, journey, celebration, and embodiment. And so you're invited for that transformative devotional practice. And it really, so much of what we do in Centers for Spiritual Living and religious science, the focus is more on practice. I remember when I came around, it was just viewed as a very philosophical, intellectual kind of endeavor, and a lot of the practical use and experiences were kind of pushed to the side, and that's really the beginnings of religious science. A new thought were practical applications for our lives, like how to use that mind power and mind energy, the thought, to create a better life for ourselves, especially on the physical realm. Because during those times, you better think of something else besides cutting off a part of your body as their only solution. So
Yes. All right, folks. So, Convention in the Americas at Unity Village, presented by the People of African Descent. That's PADNTG.org. And also check out Convention of the Americas, also at .org as well. So great events coming up this summer to stay in touch. All right, final thoughts. Rev Z, kick us off.
Yeah, I think, I think it's appropriate to just go with that fail-safe one in these times. I'd rather see a sermon than to be one any day. We have to start being the message, practicing this science, and it will stand on its own.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Reverend Rodney.
Well, yeah, I definitely I second that emotion. I think our lives, it's like, this is a test. This is always a test. And the thing with the test, to any test, is that the answer's already there. We've got to take the test and trust that everything that is within us is the answer, that we are the answer. But you got to take it. We have to be it. And it's not for us to fail. It's for us to apply ourselves. That's the true test of does this work, or how does this work, is in the actual practice of it. So yeah, absolutely. Let's all get to bacon.
I see a new thought pie contest coming up in the near future. Everybody sent in their favorite. But I think we've hit on a trifecta, because I'm all about the practice today too, right? That is what I heard the most throughout our conversation today, is it comes back down to our practice. Because if we're not doing the work for ourselves, we're not going to be healthy. We're not going to be whole. We're not going to be strong when our friends and our family need the support, when the organizations we serve are in crisis or turmoil or confusion. It's through the practice, first for ourselves, but then the group practice and practicing together in our spiritual communities that really is going to change the world. So, get out there and practice, folks. So we're going to wrap this up for today. Thank you for being with us. Our guest next week will be Reverend Dr. Joyful Fletcher, president of the Divine Science Ministers Association, member of the International New Thought Alliance Executive Board, and a dear friend of the network, as she also has a program here on Friday afternoons called Divine Science Everywhere. So that'll happen next Tuesday. And remember, you can check out all of our past episodes over on our YouTube channel. There's a whole playlist called New Thought Today. Goes back years with all of our interviews and conversations with New Thought leaders. So on behalf of myself, Reverend Elzia, and our special guest today, Reverend Rodney Gittens, thank you very much for being with us. Until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.